Well, this is the second full day of a Ganesha honoring, one of two Ganesha honoring festivals. And what we've got here are some beautiful images of Ganesha. Okay, I love this one too. Because we're going to talk about a ritual of invocation and of banishing that I developed around the devotional image of the singularity of all existence that, for the time being, I find convenient to encapsulate in the image of Ganesha. And you saw that crank, it's in the form of a jack-in-the-box. Okay, now this jack-in-the-box, it's gorgeous. Even the lid, top and bottom of the lid is Ganesha. This was constructed by Miss Carolyn Tilley, our dear friend. We refer to her as one of our darling daughters, okay? And it is a real-life jack-in-the-box, and it plays Pop Goes the Weasel. Now, over the years, and at the pop, Ganesha pops out there, and it's a beautiful Carolyn Tilley homemade Ganesha, complete with a single tusk and a lasso and a couple of Ganesha's beautiful things, nice necklace on. And when it goes, pop goes the weasel, Ganesha pops up. Over the years of me showing it to people and abusing it over the years, the music has sort of well, it's broken. Well, here, let's see if I can get it to sound a little like something here. Hang on for a second. Why am I doing that this morning? I'll tell you why. Because yesterday we started out with me talking about what invocation is all about. And I'm going to kind of pick up where we left off yesterday. This a particular comment is included in my book, Low Magic. It's all in your head. You just have no idea how big your head is. And it's the second of two chapters within the book. The first one was That's Not What Invocation is All About. And this one is This Is What Invocation is All About. And I left us yesterday with sort of the statement that invocation is squeezing the infinite singularity intelligence or singularity being, squeezing God into the only place where God can fit, and that's in you. And I teased you with a little ritual that I was going to talk about today. And so I'm going to, of course, I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, so don't worry. The idea was, my religion, if you want to call it that, Thelema, is not bereft of deities. We've got Nuit, the infinite star goddess, and we've got Hadit, the concept of any point event uh, within that infiniteness, so the ultimate center and the ultimate circumference of something that can't be truly described as having a circumference or a center. And then Rahu or Kuwait, everything in between. So the biggest out and the biggest in and everything in between is Rahu or Kuwait, the cosmic abstract concepts that truly are awesome. And the more you meditate on them, and the more you open up to the realization of those infinities, the fruits of worship sort of drop on your head. But the idea that you must actually be able to connect with the singularity itself, you can't do it intellectually. You can't think your way into it. You can't read your way into it. You can't strut around, perform rituals your way into it. The only way you can get into it and get it into you is to trigger that which you both have in common, and that is love. Falling desperately, hopelessly in love with God, and at the same time allow yourself to open up and receive that same intensity of love back. It's just not enough to love the infinite. You have to, at the same time, accept the infinite's love back to you. And it forms a feedback, and that feedback, well, technically, for the first time, it just usually triggers the heart chakra and starts it spinning. The magicians call it knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel. That's when you wed the angel, okay? And the power, the energy, the force that is operating is that of love. If my magical career was to evolve, I realized I'd need to find a sweet and simple God upon whom I could project the infinite and sublime great G, the great good that is beyond duality. Great G concepts that already held my soul in jaw-dropping awe. I needed to gather all my infinities and omna everythings. I'm making words up again. And bundle them together into one irresistible and lovable package. And so I set to work, combining the pantheons of the world's religions, combing the pantheons of the world's great religions, great and small, in search of a deity whose image and character resonates with my peculiar menu of spiritual programming. About 10 years ago, and now I guess this would be over 20 years ago, I settled ever so comfortably on a deity that fills the bill perfectly. That pot-belly remover of obstacles, Ganesha. Now, what did I do with it? I thought I brought it in here. I got a brand new, beautiful. Somebody sent it yesterday. Steve Abbott and Judy Abbott. I guess it's still up there. Anyway, no audio visuals. Okay. And in the book there, I've got a nice picture of Ganesha. Now, before you read anything unduly sectarian into my special relationship with Ganesha, I want you to know that I do not claim to be a devotee of Ganesha in the orthodox sense of the word. I do not belong to any Ganesha cults or sects. I don't travel to Ganesha pujas or festivals, nor have I memorized the 108 names of Lord Ganesha, although they're wonderful beyond words. Also, be clear on this, that I'm not advocating that you or anyone else necessarily needs to select the image, character, or concept of Ganesha as your tangible icon of the intangible, the supreme consciousness of the cosmos. It's your life, your spiritual cosmos, your magic. You are your own magician. Get your own God. If Ganesha floats your great G devotional boat, fine. It's no business of mine or anybody else's. Everything I'm about to describe to you in the following little banishing and invoking ritual can just as easily be applied using the character and image of any deity or object of your devotion, or any character or anything of your choosing. I mean, St. Francis could look into the eyes of a bird and see God and love it and receive the love back and just wallow around in that love feedback all day. I choose Ganesha because when I travel in vision to the throne room of the Supreme Consciousness of the great G, I can instantly and effortlessly imagine that I'm beholding the all-loving and beautiful sweet face of Ganesha. My heart swells and overflows with a current of love for the divine, and I can joyously plunge my soul into the massive, cozy heart of that deity. But just as easily, I find myself totally receptive to that same flood of divine love and bliss coming from Ganesha. And therein lies the key. Once I became comfortable with my new relationship with the great G in the image and personality of Ganesha, I automatically began to acknowledge his presence and enlist his blessings and guidance prior to embarking upon any serious undertaking. His huge ears are perpetually attuned to my prayers. His unjudgmental eyes lovingly bore witness to my noblest thoughts and deeds and my vilest vices and vanities. At day's end, I comfortably rested in the folds of his great curled trunk as he rocks me to sleep. Okay, I confess, I was dangerously close to becoming a Ganesha nut. No offense to real Ganesha nuts. I even seriously thought about memorizing his 108 attributes, like Lord of the whole world, remover of obstacles, beloved and lovable child, moon-crested Lord, master of poets, Lord of music, huge pot-bellied Lord. Boy, I could identify with a pot-bellied God. One who is easy to appease, destroyer of all obstacles and impediments, etc. But I'm a lazy man. And my Lord Ganesha is easy to appease. I resolved that I would simply chant his name 108 times as a mantra prior to meditation or magic, or in the quiet moments before my lectures or musical performances, or indeed before I do anything important, like waiting at an airport gate or sitting in a parking lot. A friend gave me a rosary of 108 beads, and for a while I used that to help me count off the Ganeshas. Sadly, I ended up leaving it behind on an airplane seat somewhere between Copenhagen and London. I felt kind of funny using a rosary in public anyway, especially when I flew, and I fly a lot, or did back then. Other passengers looked at me like I was some kind of white-haired terrorist saying my last suicidal prayers. So, no, I needed a quick and easy way to silently and secretly chart the name Ganesha 108 times while counting on my fingers. After much experimentation, I discovered the perfect technique. I determined if I sang the word Ganesh or Ganesha repeatedly to the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel, I need only sing 4 1/2 verses. Each verse, example below, each verse equals 24 repetitions of the divine name, so 4 1/2 verses is 108. Ganesh, 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 Ganesha, Ganesh, 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 Ganesha 12. Ganesh, 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 Ganesha, Ganesh, 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 Ganesha. 24. 4 1/2 of those. It works perfectly. I just kept track on the fingers of one hand. I can do it while driving the car. I can do it mentally while standing in the line at the airport. I can do it while flying without alarming my fellow passengers. I eventually discovered I could do it both to banish my circle and to invoke the great G. In order for you to appreciate the simplicity of this little ritual, you need to understand the magical dynamics of how the magician moves about the temple in order to initiate and direct the flow of energy that either invokes or banishes a specific magical force. Now I give a little lecture that in the Northern Hemisphere, I have to preface that, because these directions we're talking about deal with the apparent movement of the sun through space-time. Moving with the sun, or clockwise in the Northern Hemisphere, moving in that direction is an invocation. Okay, and moving with in the direction and rotating in a clockwise movement is also an invocation. Okay, you're drawing it in. And a movement that starts at the circumference of your circle and then spirals inwardly in a clockwise direction is also banishing, or is also invoking. Does that make sense? Because you're drawing it all in. You're drawing the infinite circle into your point, okay? So as you move around the temple in a counterclockwise inward spiral, you're invoking too, okay? The opposite is banishing. You start in the center and you move counterclockwise in that spiral, pushing everything out, creating a vacuum that eventually is demarcated by the circumference of your circle. That's banishing too. So counterclockwise motions are banishing. You move from place to place to place counterclockwise. You rotate counterclockwise. Those are banishing directions. And of course, you can mix and match them to create the dynamics of like swirling water. But just those two banishing and invoking directions are what I try to explain before I actually do them. So banishing. Oh, rotating clockwise, excuse me. where am, oh, I got to start over here. Banishing. Rotating. Let's see, where am I? Yeah. Okay, there we go. Anyway, keeping that in mind, believe me, the the charts are very correct. Okay, there's things like that. Okay, now get this. The dance of Ganesha, I call this the dance of Ganesha, a ritual meditation. Here's the banishing part. The magician sits down in the center of the circle. I say sit down because I'm just the laziest bastard, and because it seems so Indian and Hindu to kind of sit in a half lotus or something. The magician sits down in the center of the circle, facing east, eyes closed. The entire ritual meditation is accomplished in the mind's eye. So this is all, because I'm not going to get up and dance. Okay, you can. Marguerite can. Okay, but this is all in my head. Okay. Once relaxed and settled, the magician formulates in the mind a tiny living image of Ganesha, standing in his colorful glory in the center of the magician's brain. Then the tiny Ganesha bursts forth from the brain and stands on the floor directly in front of the magician. The magician, magically, the image of the deity has now grown to about 3 feet high. So you can get a good focus on it, about 3 foot high Ganesha right in front of you. The Ganesha begins to gracefully whirl widdershins, or counterclockwise. The image of the spinning Ganesha, or the dancing spinning Ganesha, should bring delight to the heart of the magician. Now this seems sort of corny and to say, but no. Picture it in such a way that it delights you to see it. Because that delight is the energy that you'll be working with, expanding, amplifying in this ritual. Okay, so you got your little Ganesha, your 3 foot Ganesha spinning counterclockwise. That's what widdershins mean, okay. While continuing to whirl widdershins, Ganesha now begins to move widdershins, or counterclockwise, in an outwardly spiraling circle around the magician. Okay, there is Ganesha spinning. There's the magician right in the center, and Ganesha is dancing around, starting in the center, moving counterclockwise all the way around. Okay. And in a way, it's pushing the entire universe. So this is an ultimate banishing. Okay. You're creating an uber vacuum. Okay. As the spiral takes Ganesha farther and farther away from the center of the circle, the seated magician, the circle and the seated magician, the image of the deity grows in size. So the further away Ganesha's image becomes, it grows, so it stays in the same relative size. Okay. The details that you could see in Ganesha's figure when it's 3 feet tall is just as clear when he's 25 feet away, because he's grown that big. You can still see him that clear. So as he's pushing things around, okay, he's actually growing like that, but staying inside in the same relative shape. Okay. By the time the chant has reached the end of the first half of the first verse, Ganesh, 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 Ganesha, Ganesh, 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 Ganesha. By the time you get to that, Ganesha's whirling spiral dance has brought him again directly in front of the magician. But now the spiral has carried him to the far eastern limits of the temple room. The image of Ganesha is now about 12 feet high. Now, you continue your chant, and by the time the chant has reached the end of the second half of the first verse, Ganesh, 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 Ganesha, Ganesh, 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 Ganesha. By that time, Ganesha's whirling spiral dance brings him again directly in front of the magician. But by now the spiral has carried him to the far eastern limits of the continent. In my case, North America. The image of Ganesha is now many thousands of miles tall. Now, by the time the chant has reached the end of the first half of the second verse, Ganesha's whirling spiral dance has now encompassed the sphere of the earth and the orbit of the moon. The image of Ganesha is now hundreds of thousands of miles tall. By the time the chant has reached the end of the second half of the second verse, Ganesha's whirling spiral dance has encompassed the sun and the orbits of all the planets in our solar system. Ganesha is now many millions of miles in size. And this is all happening automatically as you're singing Ganesh, 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 Ganesh. Okay. By the time the chant has reached the end of the first half of the third verse, the dance has enclosed the Milky Way, and Ganesha is now hundreds of thousands of light years in stature. By the time the chant has reached the second half of the third verse, Ganesha's spiral dance has circumscribed the local group of galaxies in the neighborhood of the Milky Way, and Ganesha is now millions of light years in size. By the time the chant has reached the end of the first half of the fourth verse, Ganesha's dance has reached so far into space that the Milky Way and our local group of galaxies look merely like one fuzzy star in the midst of billions of other star galaxy groups. And Ganesha is billions of light years in size. By the time the chant has reached the end of the second half of the fourth verse, Ganesha's spiral dance has pushed the physical universe to its inscrutable limits. There is no beyond. There is no size bigger. Space has been transcended. The concept of center and circumference has been obliterated. There is only the infinite immensity of Ganesha, the infinite smallness of the magician, seated in the deity's dimensionless center. The banishing is complete. The invocation. Remember, we do 4.5 verses of Pop Goes the Weasel. The invocation. The magician has now chanted 4 complete verses of the Pop Goes Ganesha mantra. During those 4 verses, the ever-growing image of dancing Ganesha has banished or pushed away the entire universe by whirling widdershins in a counterclockwise spiral until it has reached the limits of space-time. There is no more universe left for the now infinitely Ganesha to circumscribe. No outside of itself. No, not even empty space. When the magician has grasped the absolute immensity of this idea, he or she is now ready to invoke. The infinitely large image of Ganesha standing before the magician now begins to gracefully spin clockwise. During the first 4 lines of the chant remaining, the spinning Ganesha will move in a very short inward clockwise arc until it enters the magician's right ear. Like that. Ganesh, 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 Ganesh. During the second of the 4 lines of the chant remaining, the spinning Ganesha moves in a very short inward clockwise arc till it enters the back of the magician's skull. Ganesh, Ganesh, Ganesha. And in doing so drags the second quarter of the cosmos with it and deposits it in the magician's own head. During the third of the 4th lines of the chant remaining, the spinning Ganesha moves in a very short inward clockwise arc until it enters the magician's left ear. This movement completely drags the third quarter of the cosmos with it and deposits it in the magician's own head. Ganesh, 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 Ganesh. During the 4th and final of the 4 lines of the chant, the remaining spinning Ganesha moves in a very short inward clockwise arc until it enters the magician's forehead. This movement completely drags the remaining cosmos with it and deposits it in the magician's own head. Ganesha. For a golden moment, the magician is Ganesha, the supreme intelligence, the great G. There is no outside of the magician. The invocation is complete. Now, I know I've shared at least portions of this with you several times over the years, but I always like to do it around the festival time here. Let's see if I can get it going again. Come on. And that's it for today. I'll see you all tomorrow for Saturday morning cartoons. Until then, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.